The digestive system is that system which brings nourishment to the body and gets rid of waste. I think the thing that most people think of is the stomach, but it actually starts with the mouth. And there are chemicals in the mouth that help to start digestion, along with the teeth and breaking the food down.
We first start chemically and mechanically breaking up the food that we take in the mouth. We go through the process, of course, chewing up the food, which is the mechanical chopping it up. Fancy name for chopping up food in your mouth. Chewing is actually called mastication. Now, when you take this food and chop it up and masticate it, you turn it into a big wad of saliva-filled food. And once we have that big wad of saliva-filled food, it's no longer called a wad of food, it's called a bolus of food. Now, you're not just mixing it up mechanically, you're also starting to digest it chemically. All the saliva is releasing little bits of chemicals called enzymes. One in particular, called salivary amylase, starts to break up starch right in your mouth as you're chewing it. If you've ever noticed when you chew a saltine cracker, if you keep chewing it and chewing it and chewing it without swallowing, it'll get very thick and sticky and full of air. This is part of the chemical breakup of it. From there, we swallow that bolus of food, and that bolus of food is moved down to the back of our throat through the pharynx into a small, thin, elastic tube of smooth muscle tissue called the esophagus. The esophagus runs from the base of your throat all the way down through your thoracic cavity, through a muscle called the diaphragm, and releases the food into your stomach. In the stomach, we take that bolus of food and we're gonna add lots of fluid to it. We're gonna add chemical enzymes from the stomach itself. We're gonna add gastric juice. That's really what we collectively term all those enzymes. We're also gonna add hydrochloric acid. Hydrochloric acid is very caustic. Caustic means that it burns things. If you dumped acid on your hand, it would burn the skin. And that's actually what's happening in the stomach itself. This hydrochloric acid is burning up any bacteria and impurities and particles that came in through the stomach. So we mix up that wad of food with hydrochloric acid and stomach juices, and it becomes a liquid substance called chyme. We then release the food in small little bits from the stomach through a really tight muscular ring called the pyloric sphincter. Pyloric sphincter controls how quickly or how slowly you release food from the stomach. So we take that food and release it from the stomach into the first part of your small intestines. First loop of the small intestines is about 8 to 12 inches long, and it's called your duodenum. Then the food moves into a longer tube about 8 feet long called the jejunum, where we have a large portion of absorption take place. And then the last section of the small intestines is called the ileum, and we have even more absorption take place.
Most of your digestion takes place in the small intestine.
The liver, in the digestive part of the process, takes all the nutrients that we absorbed from our small intestines, and they are packaged and processed into the liver. We take those broken down products and we make new skin, new muscle, new nerve, everything. It also acts in the digestive system as a detoxifying organ. Most of the food that we take in is absorbed through that small intestine, but there are a few substances that are absorbed directly from the stomach. They don't have to go through processing in the small intestine. Those substances include medication, prescription and non, and
alcohol is absorbed readily through the stomach. And that's why you can get drunk faster than you thought you could.
Another very important thing that the liver does for the digestive process is it makes a substance called bile. Bile does something called emulsify fats. To emulsify a fat, it means it takes it from that big fat glob that it is and breaks it up into little pieces so your small intestines can digest it. Underneath the liver, you have another small organ called the gallbladder. The gallbladder takes the bile that's made in the liver and concentrates it. So you only have to use a very small amount to emulsify those fats. The pancreas function is to make digestive enzymes and release them same time we release the bile right into that small intestine. In fact, the most important chemicals we have for digestion are the ones that come from the pancreas. So 3 major organs that are accessory organs of digestion. You have the liver, gallbladder, and the pancreas, all coming in that first section of the small intestines, the duodenum. After we move past the small intestines, remember there is where we've done the major portion of absorption, we move to the large intestine. It has 4 major sections. You have the ascending colon, which is the part that comes up, the transverse colon, and the descending colon. At the end, you have kind of a swivel-shaped part of the colon called the sigmoid colon, and it ends in the anus and in the rectum, where we actually eliminate the feces. Now, when we get to the large intestine, we've done most of our absorption, taken almost all of our nutrients out, and all we're really left over with is a very, very liquid waste product. As that liquid waste is entering the large intestine, we have the large intestine absorbing a lot of that water back and turning it from a liquid waste product into a semi-solid waste product called feces. In addition, in the large intestine, we have a large amount of healthy, normal bacteria. A lot of people, you say bacteria and they get very scared because we're taught it's a very bad thing, but in reality, bacteria can be very, very helpful to the body. In the large intestine, we could not absorb vitamin K. We could not make some vitamin D unless the bacteria in our large intestine digest the waste product first, and then we get to absorb those vitamins. So some of that bacteria is actually very, very important. The last portion of the digestive tract is where we actually eliminate the waste product that's made, the feces, and the fancy name for getting rid of the feces, of course we have lots of unfancy names, but the fancy name is to have either a bowel movement or the term defecation, where we eliminate that semi-solid waste product from the body.
The lining of the digestive system is the same all the way through from the mouth to the anus. The 4 layers of the digestive system are the mucus layer, which allows things to slide through the intestine, if you can picture that. The submucosa, which has the blood vessels that will take nutrients to pass along to the rest of the body. The smooth muscle layer will help peristalsis, which is the movement of food through the intestine.
Smooth muscle tissue that lines our intestines actually can go in a little bit of any direction it wants. If you can picture it as a wave-like motion, pushing the food along. Almost like if you're squeezing a tube of toothpaste from the bottom, hand over hand. So you squeeze and push it along that way. And it has to be able to do that.
And then the serous layer, which is the moist outer layer of the intestine, so the intestine doesn't stick to itself. The whole digestive process takes between 24 and 48 hours.